The courtroom was unusually quiet that morning, as if the walls themselves sensed the tension building inside. Judge Eleanor Hayes adjusted her glasses and glanced toward the two benches, one reserved for the prosecution, the other for the defense. Both sides were led by senior judges temporarily assigned to argue a rare constitutional dispute. It was a strange sight, two judges facing each other not from the bench, but from the litigants' tables. The case had already captured national attention, and the gallery was packed with reporters, citizens, and law students eager to witness history unfold. Judge Marcus Reed, acting as the petitioner, rose first. Known for his sharp intellect and fierce commitment to justice, he accused the Judicial Oversight Council of abusing its authority by suspending a lower court judge without a proper hearing. His voice echoed firmly through the room as he presented his argument, stating that no judge, no matter how junior, should ever be deprived of due process. On the opposite side, Judge Alistair Cole stood as the respondent, defending the council's decision. Calm and composed, Cole argued that the suspension was necessary to preserve public trust after allegations of corruption surfaced. He insisted the council had acted within its constitutional limits. Judge Hayes listened intently, her expression unreadable. The two opposing judges exchanged pointed remarks, each challenging the other's interpretation of the law. The tension rose when Marcus accused the council of acting out of political pressure, prompting murmurs across the gallery. Cole, refusing to be shaken, countered that protecting the integrity of the judiciary sometimes required swift and decisive action. The courtroom lights flickered slightly, adding to the already dramatic atmosphere. As the arguments grew more heated, Judge Hayes raised her hand to silence the room. She addressed both judges with a stern yet steady voice, reminding them that the purpose of the judiciary was not to win debates but to uphold justice. Her words seemed to cut through the air, momentarily diffusing the tension. She announced a brief recess, leaving both sides to reflect on the gravity of the case. When the session resumed, a new piece of evidence was introduced, a confidential memo revealing that the suspended judge had not been given access to key documents before his hearing. The revelation changed the tone entirely. Marcus seized the moment, using the memo as proof of procedural violation. Cole's face tightened. Even he couldn't deny the seriousness of the document. A wave of unease spread across the courtroom as everyone realized the case had taken an unexpected turn. After hours of deliberation, Judge Hayes returned with her verdict. The gallery fell silent. She ruled that while the council had the right to initiate disciplinary action, it had violated fundamental due process rights by denying the accused judge proper access to evidence. Her decision reinstated the suspended judge and ordered a fresh, transparent inquiry. The courtroom erupted with whispers, some praising her decision as a victory for justice, others criticizing it as a challenge to judicial authority. Judge Marcus allowed himself a rare moment of relief, while Judge Cole nodded respectfully, accepting the ruling with dignity. Despite the fierce arguments, both men understood that the judgment restored balance within the judiciary. As the gavel struck, Judge Hayes reminded the courtroom of a timeless truth. Justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. And with that, the historic drama drew to a close, leaving a lasting imprint on the nation's legal landscape. The news of Judge Hayes's landmark ruling spread across the country like wildfire. Legal analysts debated every line of the judgment. Students filled lecture halls to study the case, and political commentators argued endlessly about its implications. But inside the walls of the Judicial Oversight Council, a different kind of storm was brewing. Several senior members, embarrassed by the public scrutiny, demanded an internal meeting to discuss the fallout. Rumors hinted that certain officials had pushed for the suspension of the junior judge for reasons far beyond ethics. A whisper of personal vendettas, political connections, and long-buried rivalries hiding beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Judge Marcus Reed returned to his chambers only to find an anonymous envelope waiting on his desk. Inside was a single handwritten note. "You don't understand what you've started. More eyes are watching than you think." The cryptic warning unsettled him. For the first time, he wondered whether the case he had boldly fought in court was only the beginning of something much darker. He locked the note in his desk drawer and tried to focus on his remaining cases, but the unease lingered like a shadow behind him. Judge Alistair Cole, on the other hand, spent the evening reviewing the evidence once more. Though he had lost the case, something about the newly revealed memo bothered him deeply. The handwriting, the signature, the timing, it all felt suspicious. Cole had a reputation for being calm and rational, but beneath that surface lay a sharp instinct honed over decades. And that instinct now whispered that the memo hadn't simply appeared. Someone wanted it to surface at the exact moment it would cause maximum damage. He decided to launch his own quiet inquiry, independent of the council. Judge Hayes, unaware of the tension growing behind the scenes, attempted to return to her normal schedule. But her ruling had made her the center of attention. She received praise from reformists, criticism from hardliners, and countless invitations from the media. She ignored all of them. She had no desire for fame. She only wanted the truth to prevail. Yet even she felt that something about the case was incomplete. There were too many convenient coincidences, too many unanswered questions. Why was the suspended judge targeted so aggressively? Who leaked the memo? And what did they stand to gain? 2 days after the verdict, the suspended judge, David Kellier, came to meet Judge Hayes privately. His face was tired, worn down by weeks of stress and humiliation. He thanked her sincerely for giving him back his dignity, but as she studied his expression, she sensed he was holding something back. After a long pause, Kellier confessed that he had been investigating a corruption network hidden within the judiciary, one that involved high-ranking officials. He believed his suspension wasn't punishment for misconduct, but retaliation for getting too close to the truth. Judge Hayes felt her breath catch. The weight of his revelation pressed heavily on her. This wasn't merely an ethics violation or a procedural dispute. It was the outline of a conspiracy. Before she could respond, a clerk hurried into her office with urgent news. A senior member of the Judicial Oversight Council had been found unconscious in his home under suspicious circumstances. Suddenly, the court case seemed like the first ripple in a much larger storm, and all 3 judges, Hayes, Marcus, and Cole, found themselves drawn deeper into a mystery that threatened the very foundation of the justice system. The news of the senior council members' mysterious collapse sent shockwaves through the judiciary. Reporters swarmed the council headquarters, while whispered conversations in hallways and law offices hinted at a conspiracy far bigger than anyone had imagined. Judge Marcus Reed knew that the timing was no coincidence. The member's sudden incapacitation came just days after the ruling reinstating David Kellier. Marcus sensed that forces were mobilizing behind the scenes, forces willing to manipulate the system to protect their interests. Judge Alistair Cole, quietly methodical as ever, began his discreet investigation. He contacted a network of trusted colleagues and legal aides, piecing together subtle irregularities. Unexplained transfers of funds, sudden reassignments of key officials, and unusual delays in case proceedings. Each clue seemed minor on its own, but when combined, they painted a portrait of an organized effort to control the judiciary from within. Cole realized that the corruption was not limited to one council member or one suspended judge. It extended higher, much higher, than anyone had dared to imagine. Meanwhile, Judge Hayes convened a secret meeting with both Marcus and Cole in her chambers. The 3 discussed the recent events, their expressions grim. "This is no longer just a matter of procedure," Hayes said, her voice steady but intense. "We are staring at a network that has infiltrated our system. If we do nothing, the integrity of the entire judiciary could collapse." Marcus clenched his fists, frustration evident. "Then we have to act, but carefully. One wrong move and we could be accused of overstepping our authority." Cole nodded. "We need evidence. Solid evidence that can withstand scrutiny. Otherwise, we risk becoming targets ourselves." That night, Marcus stayed in his chambers reviewing case files connected to David Kellier's investigation. Each page revealed more anomalies. Judges being pressured to rule in certain ways, officials silently endorsing misconduct, and confidential memos disappearing without a trace. He realized that someone had been systematically eliminating anyone who posed a threat to the hidden hierarchy within the judiciary. Every step they had taken in court, Every procedural debate had been part of a larger game controlled by unseen hands. The next morning, a young clerk delivered an encrypted message to Judge Hayes. The note contained a single instruction: meet at the old courthouse at midnight. Come alone if you want the truth. Hesitation flickered across her face. It was a risk, but she could not ignore it. Marcus and Cole insisted on going with her, understanding that danger was now unavoidable. They agreed to meet in secret, aware that every move could be watched, every conversation recorded, and every ally potentially compromised. As night fell, the three judges arrived at the abandoned courthouse, its walls echoing with memories of past trials. Shadows danced under the flickering streetlights, and the silence was almost suffocating. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. Masked, cautious, yet unmistakably carrying the aura of someone who knew the inner workings of the council. The voice, distorted but commanding, spoke. You think the courtroom was your battlefield? This is where the real war begins. The judges exchanged tense glances. For the first time, they realized that what they had fought for in court, the principles of justice, due process, and integrity, was now in direct confrontation with a hidden force powerful enough to shake the entire judicial system. Their mission was no longer abstract. It was personal, dangerous, and urgent.